Now if you add all the other books, you can have an additional gain of a few $100 million. And that is important money that we can use for hiring teachers and keeping teachers in place so that we can reduce class size and get more effective learning done. The rest of it you can provide digitally, and that is the big advantage. Interactive, fun learning. Kids will get more out of it because it's more fun.
This isn't a matter of saying you have to have lots of money to do this. Quite the opposite. Aside from the fact that even if we don't realize immediate savings as we make this trend, it's a matter if you have a teacher having access.
And say we want to provide from now on our education through digital means and not to get stuck with the old textbooks because it's more fun, it's more, you save money, you can hire teachers with that money, all of those kind of things. So I think it's about the will. And it's the same with physical education. It's the same with after-school programs. From school to school, there are different beliefs. There's some schools that say, well, we're not going to have after-school programs. There's other schools that believe they need after-school programs because they need to keep their students in school after school because the parents are not around to help them with their homework, with homework assistance, with tutoring, and with sports programs and so on. So every school always is different on this.
So with one computer and one projector, a teacher in this classroom can reach 170 children a day. They can print out the necessary material, the kids can take notes of the necessary material, they can see it visually. That's how you can close that gap. And I'm sorry, I'm hard-pressed to believe that any school leader is going to be able to challenge and say, well, we can't do that.
It doesn't need that much training to go and provide this kind of services. But I mean, if training is needed, I'm sure that the school can do that. Every school district, I think there's money set aside for those kind of things. And I think teachers always have to be kept up to date anyway and retrain and as new textbooks come out and so on.
This isn't a one-to-one initiative. We're not talking about trying to find resources to get every single child a laptop computer. That would be a great goal. Another goal we may have in this district in the short term. But for what we're talking here, we're talking about getting content in a far more meaningful manner, far more current manner, and a far more exciting manner.
To me, it's amazing when you think about it that for so many years and decades, we are trying to teach the kids exactly the same way. I mean, we got to update this because, I mean, I have 4 kids, and anyone that has kids knows that they love being on the computer and they love getting the information there. I had my son look at geography and learn geography, and all of a sudden he showed me that, on that video, there was like you take a trip on the Thames River in England, right up the river, and he was excited about seeing that, and therefore he could study where that river is and how long is it and how many cities it goes through, and all of this information. He was fascinated because he saw it right there, rather than opening up this thick textbook and trying to retrieve this information from the textbook. So I think it's a no-brainer, this one. I think that a lot of school districts will follow.
Our school district, with the support of our 4 cities and the support of our communities, passed a bond measure. And part of that bond measure was able to go to buy technology. And it comes to your question of, well, what happens if people don't have that? Well, let me explain. We use that not so much to get every child a computer. That wasn't our goal. We wanted to equip our teachers, who in turn are able to bring it in the classroom. We actually have one of the systems in the back of the room, Governor. It's called a CMPS. We love acronyms. It's a classroom media presentation system.
This school district, you should know, is really a leader in this thing. And a leader in trying always to figure out what makes students stay here, what makes them excited studying and doing physical education, doing their homework, and wanting to go on and educate themselves after they get out of here and graduate from this school. So that is really terrific. So anyway, a lot of this information and a lot of those ideas, may I remind you, does not come out of Sacramento. Okay, it comes out of the people that stand right here. It comes from the people that are in the trenches, that are actually doing the work. And so we in Sacramento, the best thing we can do is then adopt those ideas as quickly as possible. These last 2 years, since we are in such a financial crunch and have such limited amount of resources, is to free up the categoricals, to free up telling the locals what to do. And I think that we have talked about that.
Yes, we have.
As a matter of fact, they came up to Sacramento and lobbied me heavily. What was it, a year ago or something like that?
It was in your office in Santa
That's
Monica.
right, it was Santa Monica, my office in Santa Monica. And we talked about it extensively about, how they can make ends meet but not if we keep cutting our budget and keep sticking to our categories. And so we freed up in the last budget negotiations more than $6 billion in categories. And now there's much more freedom, so they can make the decision. Each school district can make a decision on how to spend that money. And the same is with the textbooks. You know, it doesn't mean that, I think it is common sense that if you go and take this money and all of a sudden save this money, that first of all you will provide this information digitally and you know, in a more entertaining way, but also then from then on it's up to you. You maybe have all the teachers that you need. You maybe want to then you know, get some art and music equipment and stuff like that that you maybe need, or have physical education equipment that you need, and so every school will have make their own decisions on that. The legislature is going through you know, their various different debates on the budget. We have handed in our proposal on how to fill the $24 billion deficit, and I think it's important to note that you know, we have had the largest decline in revenues since the Great Depression, so I think it's important for the kids to also know that this state is really struggling, even though we are the #1 state in the union, and even though our economy has gone up by 0.4%, but because of our flawed tax system that we have, and because of a state that has refused, the legislature has refused to put a rainy day fund aside, so when we have a declining economy, we can draw down from this rainy day funds. You know, we have not done that for the last 60 years, and so therefore every time we have an economic decline, this state has the biggest drop in revenues of any state in the United States. And so it's a flawed system, and I urge the legislature again to look at this seriously and to fix the problem, because it's one thing when you get hit with those kind of problems once or twice, but let's not do it over and over and over, that every single time there's an economic decline, we have to go and make the severe cuts in education, severe cuts in social programs that are so important and make people suffer. And also having to raise taxes, go back to people to raise taxes when they have very little money themselves. So I think all of this is wrong. I think we can do much better by improving our tax system and by having a rainy day fund. And then I think we would never, ever have this kind of a problem of having drops of 27% in revenues within 1 year.
As high school students, how can we do our part to save the state money during this budget crisis?
Well, I don't think that you can do as much in the position that you're in, because you guys are doing your job. You're supposed to study hard, and we, the grown-ups, supposed to do everything that we can to provide for you. Because you know, we consider kids as like older people as the vulnerable citizens. They don't have really lobbyists in Sacramento and fighting for this money. So that's why I always say, you know, that kids ought to have the first right to the Treasury. And, you know, and I tell you something, that I feel horrible that we have to make the cuts that we make in education. And that's why, you know, the CTA, the teachers union, and us, we worked together this last time to make those initiatives pass, to make sure that we have this extra $6 billion, because it would have saved $3 billion for education. So it's our responsibility to do all that. You guys just have one responsibility, and that is to study hard and to think about your education and your future, and also simultaneously think about what can you do with your knowledge and with your gift to help those that are less fortunate. You always think about the double track. What can you do for yourself? What can you do for others that maybe are not as bright as you are, or not as privileged as you are, not as, you know, as talented or whatever. So that's the only responsibility, I think, at this point that you have. So anyway, thank you very much, and I'll be back.